Welcome to The Virtual Shift, a show looking at the seismic changes happening in healthcare with virtual care at the epicenter. Join me and my guests as we look at key cultural and policy shifts impacting how providers, payers, and patients connect, as well as how care is being reimagined both for today and the future. Hello, and thanks for tuning in today. I'm your host, Tom Foley. You can learn more about this show by visiting the program on healthcarenowradio.com, and be sure to follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter at FoleyTom, and the hashtag The Virtual Shift. We have a very special guest on today, Jeff Fallon, who is the chairman and CEO of eVideon. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Hey, Tom. Thanks so much for having me today.
Awesome. Jeff, you have been involved with eVideon for quite a while, and they are doing some very interesting things to change the experience of the patient as part of the admissions process, in room experience, and post-discharge. Can you tell us a little bit more about eVideon and your differentiated model?
Yeah, happy to, Tom. So we have a software platform that uses some hardware inside the hospital as well. And the platform is called Vibe Health. The company is eVideon, as you say, and Vibe Health is the platform. And underneath the Vibe Health platform are a bunch of different electronic solutions that hospitals are using to really transform and modernize the experience of being a patient in a hospital bed, the experience for nurses who care for patients in hospital beds, and also for the folks that come and go, whether they're ancillary staff or just visitors. And so what we do is use this TV on the wall of a patient room. We make it a smart TV, and we connect that to the hospital electronic medical record so that the TV knows everything about the patient. And it personalizes an interface for every patient demographically. So it can be a kind of a cartoon interface. If it's a child, if it's an adult, it has a more of a kind of a Netflix-like interface. But the most important personalization is for the clinical circumstances that has that patient in a hospital bed to begin with. So there's a short series of videos that are personally prescribed for every individual based upon what the EMR says is happening for that patient. So if they're on hydrochlorothiazide, there's a short video that they're prompted to view on this diuretic medication, so they just better understand the medication that they're taking, the procedures that they're going through, the medical devices that are being used on them, the discharge plans, et cetera. So it's about using asynchronously delivered short videos automatically prescribed based upon the EMR information, saving the nurse from having to do the education face-to-face and using adult learning principles to do this asynchronously as well. There's a bunch of other things we're doing to modernize that experience in the room, like digital whiteboards, digital door sign outside that patient room. But the primary idea here is we're really on a mission to modernize what it is to be a patient in a hospital room and improve the efficiency for the care team that cares for those people as well.
Very interesting. I love it because it's no longer laying in bed waiting for the doctor or the nurse to come in to, do whatever they need to do. And in my view, the key to wellness is education on many different fronts. So the patient has the opportunity to learn a little bit more about what's going on because they have access to these tools just as much as the clinician does. But at the same time, these tools actually help educate the patient better, or I would say better, but enhances the education from the patient of the patient as to what's going on from day one. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, that's a fair statement. Look, it's the patient experience transformation is often what begins the conversation for us. But the reason that hospitals are really investing in this now, as much and as important as that is, there's such a critical issue of nurse staffing and the cost of nursing and the priority to get your nursing organization out of the business of bringing a blanket to the room or ice chips. And it's not as if that stuff isn't important. It is incredibly important. But what we're doing is automating the messaging of that need from the patient via this interface to a non-clinical staff to take care of that non-clinical need. So enabling the nurse to have more time to do higher clinical intensity care and to actually do more care and less non-clinical kind of stuff. So it's really about nursing efficiency, not to mention quality. So we're replacing the dry erase board called a whiteboard on a hospital wall that is often incomplete and certainly out of date, because frankly, once you write it, it's out of date in minutes. So we're replacing those with another display, another digital display, or we can do it on the same smart TV that I mentioned earlier, incorporating a digital whiteboard into the room that is dense with clinical information that the nurse needs, that's updated in real time, like instantaneously from the electronic medical record, so that the nurse has accurate information and a full picture in the room automatically, rather than having to pull these workstations or computers on wheels into the room, for example. So that's really about wiring information at the right time, at the right place into the process of care. And that's an obvious lever on quality and safety, and wiring into the care process accuracy of information too, rather than relying on the kind of old way of doing things, which is manual and paper-based and not necessarily very efficient.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. My listeners hear very often about the challenges in healthcare, right? Older age or sicker, growing population, less doctors and nurses. So everything that it really, in my view, folks have responded in the past. In my view, it has nothing to do with how do you get to value-based care, if you will, because before COVID, that's what everybody was talking about. How do you allow the clinician across the board to operate at the top of their license and be most effective relative to the delivery of care with and therefore leverage the staff where they are needed, versus, to your point, with all due respect, there are other people that can bring the blanket to the bed or the ice chips to the bed and things of that nature, right? Everybody has a role to play. Let them all play their role at the top of what they do. And what's compelling to me is that you have a technology story, if you will, but the technology seems to be not the burden, which a lot of doctors would say, technology, don't want it. And the people would say, patients, don't use it, right? That's not, I've never found that to be true. As you know, my background in patient portals, 10 years ago, people would say, patients won't use it. Now you have hospitals charging patients to use their patient portal. So it must be working. So at the end of the day, it's a great example of how technology can play a very positive role in the delivery of care at the setting of where that patient is.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
totally agree. The example you gave there of doctors saying, like, no more technology, please, and nurses as well. I really can't fault them for it. I think we could all agree that the bulk of the technology that's been thrust upon hospital staffing has been the electronic medical record, and it was quite a lift, not just financially, but implementing it. It's a massive effort and a massive funding for an entire country. But I think we can all agree that electronic medical record is functionally a database. It's not necessarily smart technology. I mean, the smartest thing it does is informs a patient portal generally. So what we're doing, working with hospitals to get more value out of that, I'd call it data plumbing. Like an electronic medical record is like data plumbing under the kitchen counter, and we're an appliance that sits on top of that counter that uses the data that flows through that electronic medical record to cause something different in an interface with the patient. So really, I would describe what Vibe Health is as an interface for the hospital room, for the patient and the staff. And if you think about it, the primary interface device in most hospitals today is still a nurse call button. It's 1970s technology nurse call button. The high-tech version of the nurse call button is a nurse call button on a pillow speaker that you can use to go up, 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 down, down, down on your TV to change the channel. So this is really about modernizing that. It's in many hospitals today, I think you would find folks that are used to using technology like ours, like Vibe Health at the bedside. Not having a platform like this it would be like, it would just be as odd as not having infusion pumps at the bedside. It's just in this world where we're all carrying these smart devices everywhere and we have instant information that's highly contextual at our fingertips driving our decisions, the idea that at a point in time when you're maybe in fear for your life, you're certainly uncomfortable, you're a patient in a hospital, you would have so little information available to you about what's going on and why and what's next and who are these people coming and going. It's just unthinkable in this age of technology. And so it's a must have. And frankly, Gartner and other researchers have said for quite some time that smart platforms at the bedside like Vibe Health will make obsolete nurse call. I'm not wishing the demise on nurse call. And I know there's, regulatory implications for nurse call. And I'm not insinuating that would go away, but they just feel like functionally the capability of a Vibe Health platform just goes so far beyond a mere nurse call button at the bedside that it'll become standard.
So I would agree with you. I think that because of the staff shortages across the board in healthcare, technology, I don't ever see technology replacing staff, because the utilization of the staff is still going to be needed, because the volume of patients coming in is that much larger, right? Growing, aging, sicker population, less doctors and nurses. So the more that we can use technology appropriate is a better thing. And no one should be in fear, in my view, of being displaced because of technology. That said, let's talk a little bit more about Vibe Health, right? And the things that it does. So it's not just about, so at the bedside, it's not just about having a smart TV on the wall, right? You can use that. You have cameras in the room where you have virtual nursing programs and things of that nature, right? So the doctor doesn't always have to come to the room. He or she can be on the other side of the internet. And so can the nurse, hypothetically. And so talk to us a little bit more about what that capability is about.
Yeah, we built something at the beginning of the pandemic that we call Hello. It's an app-less, account-less virtual visitation tool used on any modern browser, whether it's on a smartphone, a tablet at the bedside, or a video camera like the one I've got here on my computer for video calls, so that patients can visit with families when they don't have the ability to use FaceTime. What we saw at the beginning of the pandemic was hospitals were using things like this, Microsoft Teams or Google Meet or Zoom, to solve this problem. And then nurses had to become technical support for these business video calling apps. And we saw that as unsustainable, especially, under any circumstances, but in a pandemic, it just really was unfair to see these nurses have to do so much tech troubleshooting. So we created this thing. So it can be used for patients to have visitors, even now that there's not a pandemic going on. Well, let's say it's gone down significantly, at least in the United States anyway. It continues to be a tool that can be used for virtual visitation. It is also being used as a tool for physicians to see patients in the room and to invite patient family members into that round with that patient as well, to kind of span time and space using technology, which is a pretty cool use for the thing. But as you say, there are many hospitals that are putting these telehealth or tele-ICU or virtual sitter cameras, whether they're point tilt zoom, really sophisticated, expensive, hard-mounted cameras in the room, or more kind of software cameras that are mounted on the TV. These things are coming into the room as well, and we're thrilled to be working with a bunch of them. We're live with integrations to Caregility and Avasure, and we've actually just launched we're the first ones to build the integration to Zoom's really interesting Zoom room, and it was featured at Zoomtopia a couple of weeks ago. So while we do this virtual visitation application ourselves, we have a very kind of open and interoperable strategy as well as technology. We're really not trying to win the virtual visitation business. We're just trying to solve a problem for hospitals. And if they choose somebody else's virtual visitation tool like Caregility, Avasure, or Zoom, we're really thrilled to support that and bring it into the room and help the hospital not have to acquire more hardware and to be able to use our interface, our platform, as the interface for such a telesitter or tele-ICU or whatever kind of application they want to bring into the room. we're thrilled to be the interface for that and do an integration to it. And that, frankly, is pretty core to our strategy.
How do you see Vive Health being suited for the hospital at home type of approach? That hospital room being moved, distributed environment, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's a very logical extension of what we're doing, delivering this asynchronous, video-centric education that parallels the patient's clinical path, and doing so in an automated way so that when education is assigned in the electronic medical record, or even so much as a new medication is prescribed and logged in the electronic medical record, it can trigger this specific series of educational videos to be prompted to that patient. There's no reason that can't be done in the patient's own home instead of in the hospital bed itself. Now, the tricky part there is the integration to the electronic medical record and the hospital's comfort spanning that distance between their EMR on their network and causing something to happen in the patient's home. But it's absolutely a logical extension of what we do, and we will.
Yeah, I just see that over time, as this market, right, hospital at home is no news to you, and being able to extend that patient's room to almost a care anywhere type of model is just something that it is a growing trend. So I'm excited to see what Vive Health will be doing more so in that particular market. So what caught my eye, and the reason why I reached out, was you had some recent recognition by eVideon, AVIA Connect, top digital health company for 2023. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we're pretty proud of that recognition. Avia has a great reputation of consulting with hospitals across the United States, and so they had some questions of hospitals, and they had some questions of us, and we're kind of humbled but pleased and proud of the recognition of being named in actually two different categories by Avia. One, they named us a top patient education company. That's a category I hadn't really heard assigned to what we do before, but I get it, and you probably do as well, based upon what I've been describing about what we do. Typically, these are called interactive patient systems, but patient education is a core value proposition of what we do. It's certainly one of the ideas that first gets a conversation going with us, but typically it's the other things that we're doing with these other smart displays, like the digital whiteboard and digital door sign and the Hello virtual visitation tool as well, that sort of differentiates us. But we'll take the recognition. We're really proud of it. The other thing that they recognized us for, they named Vibe Health as one of the top virtual visits companies, which was super cool because, as I said, we built Hello for the pandemic. It was really built just to solve something that we saw as an important need and a problem that our clients were facing. We really didn't build it to be like a globally competitive standalone virtual visitation kind of a tool, but to be recognized side by side with some really tremendous solutions for virtual visitation is just, we're truly honored and humbled and proud to be mentioned in the same breath with those guys.
Well, it goes to, you and I have known each other for a long time, and eVideon has always been a thought leader in the space, an innovator in the space. So from an outsider looking in, it doesn't surprise me, frankly. But I just think that these are some great recognitions. And I do want to touch on your point, because I have been advocating that point for a long time. And that is that education is the key to moving the patient from awareness to wellness. If you don't have it, it will never happen. And without patient engagement, you can have the best technology, but if they're not going to use it, they won't engage and they won't move along that continuum. And that is ultimately the key that we see in providing things like remote patient monitoring and chronic care management in a virtual setting, right? So it has to be compelling. If it's compelling, the patients are going to grab it. It's like Steve Jobs once said, consumers don't know what they want until they see it, right? And I think they like, I always say, Mikey likes it relative to video engagement, because the pandemic taught us a lot. that patients will use technology, one, and two, they like that virtual experience. And the care team likes it as well. The providers, and not only the providers, but the nurses, as well as the loved ones who live in a different state that want to see mom or dad whether it be in the hospital room or at their home. It's key to mental health as well as movement to that, again, different state of wellness. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's two things that come to mind. First, there's just no way that healthcare will be markedly different than every other industry that's been transformed forever by empowering the consumers with technology and information. There just isn't. I mean, if banks are now an application on your phone and you rarely walk into the brick and mortar, like the hospitals and especially the urgency for understanding what's going on, well, absolutely. I'm not saying hospitals will go away and it will become an application on your phone, but there are applications on your phone that will be integral to making that consumer, in this case a patient, more than a passenger and an actual participant and a decision maker in the process of their care. And we urgently need the consumers of healthcare to take a more active role in that. If we're ever going to bend this cost curve to something that doesn't bankrupt our entire economy, it's going to require that kind of an engagement. So then the other thing that's on my mind about that is, as a provider organization, stand on this idea that patients don't want to use technology. I just think you're swimming upstream and against the tide so badly. It's going to be very hard. But B, so you're telling me you're gonna plan your engagement strategy for only those people who will not be reached by technology. Well, 74% of Americans own smartphones today. They clearly want to be engaged with technology. You wouldn't spend what these smartphones cost if you didn't want a smartphone. Like there's still dumb phones you can carry around. And I know there's a lot of people that do. In fact, it's 26% of Americans have no phone or a dumb phone, not a smartphone. But my point is, we are all voting with our actions and our dollars every day, and smart technologies are what we're investing our time and our money in. And so woe be unto the hospital that doesn't plan for a strategy to reach those people who want to be engaged in their own care, and they expect technology to be central to it. So you can't just put your head in the sand and say, like, people don't want to use technology. No, people do want to use technology, and those that don't recognize that and innovate accordingly are going to be swept out to sea with especially what's coming here with the economy.
I agree. I, as you know, I live in Punta Gorda. And, so it's a high senior citizen population. And, my mother-in-law is 84. She's on her smartphone and she's interfacing with her doctors, her banks, to your point, right? It is a point of interface. People are using it. It's not whether they will use it. They are using it. And it has demonstrated to be the engagement points in most scenarios, right? I always say it's not what happens when you're in front of the doctor that's so important, while the hospital might be a different setting, but it's what happens when you're not in front of the doctor, whether or not you're going to achieve any degree of wellness. So if you can reach them, engage them, and compel them to move, if you will, then the healthcare system overall will be a better place, because nothing will happen in healthcare unless the patient moves, decides to engage and change behavior. That's really the crux of the state of the healthcare system, in my view.
Well said.
So we have about a minute left. I'm going to give it to you. Where do you see 2023 going from your perspective?
Well, hopefully we will be able to turn the page on this pandemic once and for all. I know that there are many people still struggling, and nurses and doctors and hospitals who care for patients it's still exists in some corners, and I hope that we can finally move beyond that. I really see that 23 is a year when further application of the lessons that we learned about telehealth and virtual engagement kind of tools are applied. Look, let's not kid ourselves. There's some serious financial wins that we're heading into, and that it is not going to be comfortable for a while, and hospital revenues are struggling significantly through this. So it's not going to be easy, but there's no question that technology has been shown to be an efficiency lever that I'm not saying that all technologies are worth every dime that's put into them, but there's just no way that technology to increase efficiency for the care team won't be an important tool for hospitals to navigate this coming financial headwind that we're already in. And from what I read, it's only going to be getting worse for quite some time. So that's what's on my mind. Just, there's hard financial times here already for hospital revenues, and we're excited about how hospitals are recognizing the efficiency benefits in addition to the patient satisfaction, just kind of the logicalness of this whole idea that we're bringing to them. But the investment that they're making in the efficiency of the organization, even in the face of these financial headwinds, is really inspiring and humbling. And we're just honored to be chosen by these hospital systems to help them navigate all that they're working on right now.
We're going to have to leave it there. Jeff, I appreciate your time, your insights, and the great work that the eVideon team is doing. And I hope you have nothing but a happy and pleasant holiday season and a good 2023.
Thank you so much, Tom. It's been great chatting with you.
I want to thank the show sponsors, HP. HP Engage Long Lifecycle Products provides the stability, safety, and security you need, plus flexibility and performance designed for today and tomorrow. As well, GenieMD, providing a modular, scalable, and customizable virtual care platform and clinical services to help providers extend care into the home, increasing access and quality while driving new revenue opportunities. If you missed part of today's episode, you can tune in at the same time, 11 a.m. or 7 p.m. Eastern, throughout the week, and be sure to check out the program page on healthcarenowradio.com. And remember, connect or follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter at FoleyTom, and follow the show's hashtag, The Virtual Shift. I'm Tom Foley. Until the next shift.